let's talk about some fun stuff. If you're going to come to an event, you're going to want to hit something with a sword. You want to throw packets at things. We're going to teach you how to make all those things right now. Let's start off with the simple one and the one that I want to get done before I drop crap all over the place. This is the beginnings of a spell pack. It's just a piece of cloth, kind of thin, about 5 inches by 5 inches. You're going to take about a tablespoon of bird seed. I don't know if you can focus in on this stuff, but it's just the regular old finch bird seed. You're going to see little black things in there. Those are sunflower seeds. They're not bad for packets, but mice love them. They will rip these things apart and destroy everything to get to them. So if you put your LARPing equipment out in some kind of garage or something like that, you're going to come back to bird seed everywhere. And you're going to have some of your favorite clothing all chewed through. The finch seed, they don't seem to even bother with that, the little tiny seeds. So anyhow, we've got the finch seed, 1 tablespoon, put that in the center of this little piece of cloth like this. I got a little tiny rubber band. You can't see it because it's a very, very thin rubber band. Smaller the better usually. You know, you just kind of take this thing, fold it together, pinch it up at the top, and then kind of do this thing, do a little shake of it. And you're going to want to spin that thing around just a little bit of a twist. I usually like to shake mine, pinch it down, shake mine, pinch it down. Get a nice tight ball on the end there. And then once you got it, hold it in place, take your rubber band, put it over the head, around, 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 until you got it about as tight as you want to take it. And give it one last little tweak, make sure the rubber band is all the way in there, and that is a packet. We wedge these things in our hands, so if you come across the necromancer or something like that, he might have a number of these in his hand. You're not allowed to have any more than the spells you have available to you, so that's how you do your glow. When you're done, you throw these things at people. The more accurate you are at throwing things, the more likely you are going to be at getting those kinds of things going. That was packets. Alright, next up we're going to talk about slings. Not too many LARPs have slings. I haven't seen one yet in my life, but I didn't think it was going to be that hard to do something. Just take a packet. Now this one's pink. Try to make a sling look nicer. Again, this is an experiment. This might go away. I don't know how bad anything's going to happen from it, but I think it's relatively easy to do. It's going to be a very low cost as far as skill points to get a sling as far as your skill. You're not going to want it to be any longer than 12 inches. Packet tied at the end, leather cord. If you can put like leather at the end here, if it's soft enough, I just want to make sure nobody gets hurt with these things. The way you would do that is you would have the sling in your offhand. It's going to be a little bit weird to do because you're offhand, and then you're going to have a real packet in your right hand. So the idea is you spin your sling and try and do it as good as you can. Spin it a little bit and then throw the packet. That is your sling bolt. Alright, so now let's talk about thrown weapons. Thrown weapons could be something as elaborate as a dagger that you make. I actually got a design from this thing off the internet. They actually sell them over in Europe. I actually want the ones from Europe because they're injection molded. They've got foam molding and everything like that. These are alright, but they kind of break in the middle. That's why I put a little bit of extra a more firm rubber or foam in here. But these are completely soft foam. These cannot be no core, no nothing. This thing has to be pretty darn soft and squishy. So you put your layers of foam together, you seal them together with, I use Loctite spray adhesive. A lot of people use contact cement. Spray it, put it on both sides, wait till it dries to stick it together, and then you spray it with Plastidip at the end. A lot more better ways of doing it online. I am not a Plastidip guy. This was my first experiment at it. They throw okay, but what you could also do, you're going to break weapons over time here at this game. This just happened at the last game I was at. Broke the tip off of it where I was trying to fight something. You're going to have all the kinds of this little foam laying around. This is closed cell foam. We'll talk about foam in just a little bit. But you're going to have a bunch of this stuff. If you were to wad this thing up, keep it kind of light. I mean, there is duct tape in there, but if you were to mash it together and put some duct tape around it, you might have yourself a throwing rock. It has to be soft though, so make sure it's soft. I probably wouldn't use anything like this. I would more likely use the foam in the tip of these things, which I'm not going to be able to rip apart because this duct tape is pretty solid. but I'll show you what that is in a little bit. But yeah, rocks, I've seen hammers. Some people make hammers. Have to be really soft, guys. Keep them soft. Do not cover them in duct tape. Just Plastidip. That's going to make them a little bit firm, but just enough to seal them a little bit. But keep them soft. They have a lot of soft foam out there that people use in cosplay for their costumes to make armor out of. Those can be used to put together for foam weapons. There's going to be a chart coming up here in just a little bit. I'll probably put it at the end of the video. That'll have all your dimensions on it that you can make, but thrown weapons have to be less than 12 inches long. That is the stipulation of them. You can't have them too small, but yeah, under 12 inches. All right? The one you've been waiting for, or at least the grouping of the ones you've been waiting for, this is a short sword. A short sword is anywhere between 24 and 36 inches long. A medium sword is between 36 and 48. A long two-handed sword is between 48 and 60. And then a pole arm, which you use for stabbing from behind. You can strike with it. But pole arms are from 60 inches up to 72 inches. All right, they have to have a soft foam head on. But for now, we're just going to go with a regular sword. Everything else kind of goes off of that. So, a couple different components to that. You're going to have your core, your PVC core. You can get these at almost every hardware shop. For the larger weapons, the long weapons, you're going to want to use what's called Schedule 40. It's a thicker wall PVC, but if you look at this one here, I don't know if it focuses in very well on the camera because I'm blind as a bat, but this is pretty thin wall PVC. I found this at Menards. They call it 1/2 inch, but it's actually about 3/4 of an inch in diameter. That's one of the components that we have to deal with. We're going to deal with closed cell foam. Closed cell foam is basically the insulation foam that you get from the hardware stores. It has a certain durability to it. It doesn't squish down as easily as closed cell foam. I'm sorry, open cell foam. This one has a little strip down there that can be peeled off and that sticks together. You could use a pool noodle. Pool noodles are that way. There are some pretty fat pool noodles out there. Don't get the really fat pool noodles. They'll just make a gargantuan weapon that you don't want to deal with. And then there's other foam. This particular one, I believe, has a little, there's a little seam down there. It's solid, but they crack that seam there so you can pull your finger through there and actually rip this one open. But again, it's the same thing. It's a closed cell foam that we use on the weapons. You're going to want to use, you're going to need open cell foam. This is the couch material. You get this stuff at Joann Fabric. This is, if you look at the chart at the end, you're going to see soft tip. Everything that is a thrusting weapon, this short sword is a thrusting weapon. It has a crush tip at the end of it. That thing there, that 2 inches, is this kind of foam. Okay? We'll teach you how to get all that in there, but that's the soft stuff so that if you actually poke somebody with it, it's not going to hurt anybody. Okay? That's soft cell foam. Now, this stuff is rather expensive at Joann Fabrics. I don't know, it cost me probably 25, 30 bucks or something like that. Dollar General or small stores have these little sponges for washing your car. They're only a couple bucks and they're small, so you don't have to buy a gigantic sheet that you're going to use for 50 weapons when you can only use, or you can use this for probably about 6 or 7 of them. Okay? Soft cell foam. And then you're going to have some different kinds of duct tape. Duct tape is a LARPer's best friend. There are a number of things, and you'll see that in the chart as well. Certain things allow the people you're fighting to know what's going on with your weapon. If you have a gray weapon, that is a metal weapon. That is a steel weapon, okay? If you have a white weapon is considered a magical weapon or a mithril weapon. It is an expensive weapon. It is, if you see somebody walking around with a white sword, that's an expensive weapon. They probably know how to use it too, so don't try and gack them and steal their stuff, okay? There is wood grain duct tape out there, pretty amazing stuff. This is what you will make your staves, a staff or a bow out of. A compound bow, short bow, and long bow. Those are brown. Brown is what you want to use. If you can't find the wood grain, they do have brown duct tape out there. That's what you're going to use for those kinds of things. You might also see brown on creatures' claws. That means they're a little bit softer. Wood is a little bit easier to break. So those weapons are not going to be able to hold up to the riggers depending on how hard you swing. If you're a fighter and really buff, you swinging a wooden stick is probably going to break the stick. You can do that. Okay, so brown is that it. I have black, as you saw with my weapon earlier. I just put black around my accent pieces. Black might be something someday. We don't know yet. There's all kinds of duct tape out there, and I love to add rules for weird stuff. A black blade might be a necromancer's blade or something like that. So that stuff can come down the pike. Keep that in mind. All right. So first way you do things, you're going to cut your stick. Like I said, whatever length of weapon you want to end up being, take that length. Take off 5 inches, because that's what other things are going to be to make it the length that you want it eventually. So if you want a 4-foot weapon, take 5 inches off of that and you're going to have a 3-foot 7-inch weapon, or a 3-foot 7-inch piece of PVC pipe. It will get longer as we add to it. First thing you want to do is you'll see on this end there's a piece of red duct tape. This is just a reused weapon core. We're going to take a piece of duct tape. Now, keep in mind when you go to the store and get your duct tape, there's different kinds of duct tape out there, and there's different weights of duct tape out there. If you get the really, really thick stuff, you're going to have a heavy weapon on your hands. It's not going to swing as easily as you might like. So the really thin stuff, you'll get a feel for it. Eventually you'll see it, but it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of thinner. Usually if it's got a grainy texture to it and it's not completely smooth, the smooth stuff's really thick stuff. This is not. So you're going to want to take a square of the duct tape like that. That goes over the end of your staff or stick or whatever you want to call it, a piece of PVC, and then pull every corner down on opposite sides, down in the center. I'm sorry, down on the other side and down on the final side. So it's going to kind of look like that at the very end. And then you're just going to kind of push it down and spiral it, and that protects it, okay? That keeps anything from going down into the pipe and having the pipe jab through. You got to make sure that's on there so it doesn't jab through and hurt somebody, all right? So I'm not going to actually make a weapon for you, but we're just going to show you a little bit of the technique involved. So we got the weapon, we got the core. First of all, we're going to need, and you're going to have, scrap pieces of foam out there. You're going to have these little pieces of leftover foam all over the place when you cut them to the right length. You want a little tiny piece of that to go inside of your pipe foam. So what we want is we want a 1-inch long piece of foam, and almost about half of it. It doesn't have to be a whole lot. But it should be 1 inch thick. I'm eyeballing stuff at this point. You squeeze it around, it makes a little tiny round thing. Now that looks like it might be a little bit too big for it, so I'm going to go ahead and pull my knife back out here and slice a little bit more off of there. Be careful with your knife, obviously. I hope I don't cut myself while I'm trying to tell you how to be careful with your knife. All right. So you're going to take that little piece of foam, you're going to round it up, and you're going to put it inside the end of your blade and make it line up with the very edge of it. It's going to look like that at the very end of it. You can use this same color, it's the same stuff. Do that. Then what I like to do to make sure, now, one of the things, as you saw before, this weapon broke right there at the tip. You see my little core that I just put in there, that's there, and this thing broke right at that point. That is where the core is putting the most strain on there. If you find some of that, I haven't tried it yet, so don't quote me that this is the best thing in the world, but that tape that has the fibers in it, that really strong tape, I forget what they call it, but yeah, they have fiber tape that does that, maybe it's called fiber tape. Put a couple layers on there right around where the end of the weapon is, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put this piece of tape right over the top at the very end, and that is to hold in that piece of stuff, okay? And then just kind of lay it down on top of there. The more you can smooth this stuff out, I'm going to mess one up here so you can see it. You don't want it to look like that. You want it to look like a smoother, but I don't know if this is focusing or not. My camera's, I'm not good with my camera, so. But anyhow, you want it to be as smooth as possible. You're going to see these little ridges on here, and those will go away when they're underneath. I'll teach you how to get rid of those in just a little bit. But that's how you're going to want that piece to go. Now, you'll want to decide or make sure that you're right around where you need to be. So put your thumb on there, put a piece of tape on there to mark it so you don't go too far, because you can shove that thing out the end and you don't want that. But you're just going to want to spiral this thing on there. It's a bit of a tight fit with the pool noodles, but it is possible to get it on there. You just got to keep things going. Now, this will stay on there pretty good by itself, and I'll teach you what we're doing later. If you're using this stuff, you actually might even go ahead and put, since you can open it up, on your core, you can actually put double-sided tape, and that will hold this in place. But these usually stay in place pretty good. This is what your weapon's going to eventually be hitting with. Obviously, I'm not going to make it this darn long. So this is a pretty good weapon as it is, but there's got to be more to it. This is not how long it's going to be. There are parameters here. The butt end of it, we're going to have that in a minute. You're going to have between a 6-inch or a 12-inch grip for a short or medium length sword. It goes up to between 1 foot and 2 foot for a 2-hand sword, and for a pole arm you can get a little bit even more out of it. Those are going to be in the chart later. Anyhow, so your thing goes on there, that's how you do that end, okay? Now, this is where you're going to take your foam for the tip. You can use scissors to do stuff like this, but just going to take a piece of about 2 inch by 2 inch by 2 inch is what we're hoping for out of this. So just kind of slice into this thing. It's a messy thing cutting foam. Most people don't have something great to do it with. A knife sucks. It doesn't work very good, but you can still use it. Anyhow, you're going to have your little piece of foam like this. That's going to be your tip. Now, it's got sharp edges on it. Just take your scissors and kind of snip those little sharp edges off. As you do that, you make a mess on your floor is what you do. So it's almost round. It doesn't need to be perfect, but it's 2 inches thick and is round and is about the same diameter as your core. That is your soft tip that's going to be poking people, okay? Now, we're going to go ahead and we're going to put that in place with a little more, a lot more duct tape. This is what we use, guys, duct tape. Duct tape, get stock, buy stock in duct tape before you buy a bunch of duct tape. Yeah, that's probably not a very good idea. All right, so now I usually put a little piece of starter on there and about halfway in between, half and half, and then put this thing right on there so that it kind of stays in place. Then kind of hold it in place with your finger and spin it around and kind of make sure this thing stays in place. You're going to use the bottom of it that is on this round piece of foam to guide your duct tape. Don't push it down and try and rip your duct tape. Always pull out duct tape, get it away from there, and then actually control how tight you control as I lose control. Control how tight you're putting it on there. You just want it to be as smooth as possible. Once you get around at least one wrap, don't go crazy with the duct tape. I love duct tape, don't get me wrong, guys and girls. Duct tape's great. However, more duct tape is more weight. Okay, makes your weapon heavier. Now, we've got a fairly decent set. Now we just want to make sure that that top end is that way. This we're not going to put a whole lot of pressure on, so we're going to want to make sure we have enough of it out there. And just bring it to the very tip end of it and try to make it as round as possible. We'll get to shaping it a little bit better here in a little bit, but just try to make it as clean as you can. Don't squish it down too much. Do not compress this tip too much. Compressing the tip too much loses the effectiveness of it. If you compress it so much so when somebody stabs you, it's already into the hard foam, someone's going to get hurt, and we don't want that. Okay, so there is your tip of the weapon. Now, what I do, and not everybody is good at that, because this is what happens to duct tape as you're playing around with it. It gets all bunched together and it messes it up. And then you got really crappy looking weapons when it's all said and done. However, I pull out a bit of the duct tape and then I hang it. Hang it here and get ready for some crappy stuff, because this is where things go bad. Okay? I usually leave a little bit more, probably about 6 inches beyond. You can stick that to the shaft there if you want. We're not done with that yet. But once you get this going, pull out a length that goes to your full length and kind of lay, I don't know if I'm in the camera here or not, lay it down in a nice straight line on, I'm shaking here. All right, nice straight line on there. Then push your thumb down in the center of it. Do not grab around, because what's happening here, I don't know if you can see this, this starts to bunch up in here. You can touch it and mess it all up, and we don't want to do that. We want this to be stuck out. If you're lucky, it's not doing that at all, and it's kind of holding on to there. But then you just kind of push your thumb on there and iron it out to the side. Sometimes I'll do this. This actually allows you to slowly work it into the foam so it all sticks really good. And then you do it on the other side. And you lay down a nice, clean thing of duct tape except for up here. This looks like crap. You can pull it up a little bit. Don't stick down too much on it, and stick it all together. So now we got this all the way down to the tip here. We got it on our edge here. We're right about to go over the top of the foam. Again, don't crank down here and pull it. You're gonna crush the darn thing down. Get plenty of tape over, lay it down gently on top, and just kind of push it in the center there. It doesn't matter that this is round. We will shape it in a little bit. We don't need, for this kind of weapon, you don't need to have a nice sharp point. This is not going to look like a real sword anyhow. There's camisole weapons out there. People use those, but they're $200 sometimes, $150. They look great, don't get me wrong, but they are expensive, and I don't like spending that money because I beat the crap out of my swords. Okay, so we brought that thing around here. We topped it on the top. You'll see how there's a little tiny wedge on there. Don't push those down yet. Just pop it in the center there, and then bring it down on the other side, and just check your sides to make sure that your next layer of duct tape is going to cover both sides of this thing. Okay, you want to make sure that it's almost identically in the center from the other side. Now, hold your thumb down on it, because when you start to pull this thing, you're going to crush that crush tip. So hold your thumb down when you're on the other foam. Bring it all the way down the other side. Lay it down on top just like you did on the one side. Make sure it's almost centered on the other side. And then go ahead and do the same ironing technique. Now you're going to see some stuff on this weapon, or maybe you can't. There's these little sticky lines. Those sticky lines are because the duct tape, when you go to an event, I always take my stuff with me to make sure I can rebuild the weapon if I have to. Like that white weapon back there. Needed to rebuild that during a game. If you don't have any stuff to rebuild your weapon, what are you going to swing? You can't use that while people are running around and stuff. Alright, so we got that kind of on there. Now, before we go too much further about the other angle on it, we're going to go ahead and pull off the tape. Sometimes I'll curl it back up around and just put it on there like that. Now, some people just cram this stuff down. I hate that. It doesn't look good at all, I don't think. So, we're going to go ahead and we're going to undo the crappy thing that I did here. You're going to take this right past the edge, lift this off of the pipe. You're going to push this in even flat, so it's going in and then up. Okay? In, then up. And then just put your thumb down there and get the very top of it. Don't squish it around here yet. You got this weird thing going on right there. I don't know if you can see that, but this crappy intersection doesn't look good. Got my little knife. If you take right inside, don't cut it, but I'd say keep about a good 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch. Poke it in there and slice up. You'll have this little tiny wedge that goes up. Okay, see how it's kind of angled in an up sharp point direction in the other direction? So we take that, we kind of follow the foam, push it in towards the shaft, and lay it down flat there. Okay? Same thing with the other side. On an angle, missed it, up, and again, lift it up, twist it around so that it pulls down to and makes a nice clean edge there. All right. Then you got this little weird thing going on up here with your thing. Just iron that down, and it lays a nice smooth piece of duct tape down on there. The more crappy this is, we can hide it. Don't worry if you mess it up. But that's kind of what it should look like at the very end. Shouldn't be too much. And then we pull the other one up and we do exactly the same thing. Push it into the core. Slide it up the side like that. See that all crappy thing? Slice up, slice up. Put you up and down so you don't hurt yourself. Push that in. Again, you see this bubble here. Trying to show you everything here. I don't know if I'm coming across right or not, but anyhow, this bubble goes into here. You shove it up against there, push this in, shove it up against there. Okay, and then we put these pieces of tape over. It's okay if this doesn't look, you see how it's kind of stressed there a little bit. That is not a big deal. All right, so that's that's around there. Okay, that's around there. That's what it's going to look like. Then you're going to do the same thing the other way. I'm not going to finish this. We're gonna shortcut some things here because I don't want to build this weapon. I want to use my core for something else, and this was just a waste piece of pipe foam. Okay, so that's what your tip's going to look like a little bit. Not to mention, I don't want to use up all my gray duct tape, which I cannot find at the moment. Where did my duct? Oh, geez, rolled all the way over here. Okay. All right, so again, same thing on this corner. You're going to do exactly the same thing. This duct tape is wide enough to cover all that pink on there, and you're going to have a nice smooth weapon all the way up to the top. Now we're going to finish up this top thing here to let you see what that's like. Use a little bit of duct tape for that. Make sure my camera's still running. I guess it's got a timer or something on it, so, but it's still flashing. Okay, so again, shortcut, up, over, lightly over the top, tap it down the center, back down the other side. Bring it down, obviously take it all the way to the bottom. We're not going to do that right now. Now, this is where we're going to have to leave this like this for a little bit. Okay, this is where we're going to put that nice smooth edge on there. I've seen this done different ways. I've seen it done better ways. This is the way I do it. It's not necessarily the right way. We did the angle before. I just go in this creasing here. I just pop it out of there. Okay? Pop it out of there. Pop a little out of there. Pop a little out of there. Pop a little out of there. Again, not necessarily the right way of doing it, the way I do it. Alright, so now that we've got that, you'll see this thing's got a little tab on it now. It's kind of up in the air. It's got a little slice off of it. See how that looks right there? I don't know if it's zooming in or not. So we wrap that down. We roll that down first. Lift up the other side. Same thing. Up. See? I bent it over. That sucks. I hate when I do that, but it happens. Oh, it's because it's not cut very good. Alright. Well, I salvaged it. Kind of. Alright. So lay that foam, or lay that tape down there. Once again, lift this one up. Make sure that it's cut correctly. Do that up there. Do that down here. Then just take your little layers here that you have and kind of roll them around the points first. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll slice up into here so that it has more of a rounded thing. But that typically does the trick if you just lay it down over there. Make sure the duct tape sticks. Pinch it if you have to give it a good bond. Alright, and that's what the tip of the thing looks like. It's not the prettiest thing in the world, but it's not too bad. Not too bad. This tape down here will hold the core on, so it's not going to slide around anything. You got a nice solid weapon here. Now, you got to test your thing. You see how that's not compressing very well? It's okay. This one doesn't feel too bad. But sometimes that's really firm, especially if you put a lot of duct tape in it. So what I like to do is I like to take my little knife here. You can actually use a utility knife that clicks out and just click out the very tip tip of the blade so it's not too long. And then vertically, slicing vertically, we're going to jab into this thing and just go poop. Okay, so I just don't know if you can see that, but I have put little tiny jabs in there in a zigzag pattern all the way around this thing. So when this thing gets squished down, I'm making sure I'm seeing it here, because if I can't see it, you can't see it. But when you squish down, it kind of opens up those little air holes that we just created, the vertical holes. They expand out and they let air out. So what that does is that makes this crush tip a lot more squishy. Okay? That is your crush tip. Alright? Got your crush tip on there. Now, final finishing touches. I put a weird cross guard on mine. I put a little shave on there, putting duct tape around it. It is a pain in the butt to get it to look right, but you can do it. It's not too hard. It's just time consuming. Take an old piece of foam that you have, slice it however you want your cross guard to look. Poke a hole in this thing on both sides. Usually I put a little plus sign slit in it, and that usually allows this to shove right through, slide all the way up to here, and that's your cross guard for your sword. No one's going to hit your hands. Hands are sensitive areas. You're not going to take damage from those because hands are sensitive areas, heads are sensitive areas, groins are sensitive areas. Do not hit people in those. They don't score a hit anyhow. If somebody hits you in the head, don't take it. It's not a legitimate strike. Okay? So cross guard there. Butt end. Same thing that we did before. Now, you're going to see something weird in the chart. It's going to say 1 and then in parentheses 3. That means that we're going to take a 3-inch piece of this. We're going to slice it off at 3 inches. We're going to put in the 1-inch closed cell foam at its core and put that tape around it, just like we did the tip. Remember the tip we did? Same thing here. We're not going to put a crush tip on it because you're not doing anything with the butt of your weapon. You don't ever strike anybody with this. It is just to kind of keep that end safe from you bonking yourself with it. But you're going to have basically 2 inches of penetration for the core going into there. You're going to have 1 more inch of a packed in thing and then tape it over and just tape it to the shaft just like that. Okay? This has to be 3 inches. You know, it's 1 inch beyond the length of the weapon, which is what the 1 means, but it's got to have 2 inches holding on to the core so that this thing doesn't move around. Okay? If you only put 1 inch, it's going to flop around and do this kind of thing. We don't want that. 2 inches plus the 1 inch at the end. That is your finished weapon. Now you have a weapon. Oh, sorry, maybe not. I like to put a piece of duct tape around here to hold that onto the shaft. I like to put a piece of duct tape on here to hold this stuff from lifting up. You don't want that to lift up. And then what I do, you might notice on my weapon here, this is tennis racket tape. It is spiral stuff that you get. It tapes at the end. I use a little electrical tape on both sides. If you notice, I've actually rebuilt this, I think, before maybe. Anyhow, the tennis racket tape, it's nice and soft, and it also works with sweat. Some people use hockey tape. Hockey tape is kind of abrasive, and after a while you're going to have red hands. It might hurt a little bit. Electrical tape is terrible. It will slide. Your hands will get sweaty and slide all over it. Tennis racket tape is really, really good stuff. I bought a 6-pack of it for like $7 here on Amazon here not too long ago. That is how you make this kind of weapon. There's going to be different kinds of lengths of weapon. There's going to be different ways to do it. This is a short sword. It is a little more agile, a little more easy to get around. A longer sword, you're going to have easier sweeping underneath and getting people in their legs and stuff like that. But it is a heavier weapon to do. Then you're going to have your two-handed swords. Eventually you're going to have a two-handed sword. That's where you have the longer thing. You're allowed to strike like that. You're allowed to do it tip down if you need to. Do not do the spinning crap. You don't look good. Nobody looks good at it. Everybody thinks they look good at it because they saw it in the movie. Those guys work for hours with that spinning crap. and no one's really going to be impressed with you. I'm sorry. We'd love to be impressed with you, but, you know, we've all seen it, so that's the problem. I'm sorry. We've not all seen it. I've seen it all. You guys are kind of new, so you might not have seen it before. Spin to your heart's content. Not in combat, okay? You can't control it. You're going to hit somebody in the head. It's going to be bad things all around. So spin it when there's nobody around you, all you want. But other than that, do that, okay? That is weapons. All right, so we got a sword. We already made the sword again. This is what it's kind of going to look like. Now, how do you make a axe or a hammer, a war hammer? That's where your soft foam comes in. That's where these big sheets are kind of handy to do. Again, an axe is going to be this 2-inch thick foam, all right? And then you're just going to basically cut out the shape of your axe. You're going to see in the chart that you can have an axe head between 6 and 12 inches. That is maximum dimension and minimum dimension. 2 inches is the thickness of the stuff. But then you're going to have your axe that can only be, you know, up to 12 inches this way, 12 inches that way. You want to have a big half-moon blade axe on either side, whatever. Typically, I'm not any good at these. I have never been an axe person. They're harder to swing. However, you're going to basically take your core, you're going to put it up against this thing. Excuse me. An axe can have a crush tip. If you have a poking axe, they'll have a spear at the end of them. If that poking tip sits up there, that has to have that crush tip that we talked about. If it's below here, you don't need to worry about the crush tip. You can just have it the regular way. Put your weapon on there how you want it. Cut this thing out to let the weapon on the inside of here. And then just start duct taping this stuff and making your axe, okay? Hard to do. I've seen good ones. I've seen bad ones. I wish I could tell you more. It is a trial and error kind of thing, or talk to somebody who knows more about it. Sorry, I'm not that guy. If you're going to make a hammer, it is going to have to be, again, 6 to 12 inches in various dimensions, but it's got to be thicker, okay? It's got to look like a hammer. It can't look like an axe. So you're going to at least have to double this stuff up, maybe even triple it, so that the end of the thing looks like it's a hammer of some kind, okay? If you want to put a hammer on one side, you know, big flat blunt thing, and then put a spike on the other side, you can do that. You could even use that as a particular weapon. If there's something that takes more from a hammer than a spike, then switch the weapon around and swing it that way, okay? That's how you, again, it's not a very in-depth way of doing the hammer and the axe, but that is how you do a hammer and axe, okay? You just add it to a regular weapon. All right, if you look at the blunt weapon, if you look at the staff, and if you look at the bow and the crossbow, they are not jabbing weapons. You do not poke anybody with your staff. Staffs are for hitting on the side. Staves probably will have a crush tip on the end of them in case somebody pokes with them. I'm here to tell you, a staff is good for blocking. You start trying to hit people, and you usually get hit in the leg. I died my very first game. I went out with my staff, and I was like, yeah, let's do this. And it was like, whack, whack, whack. I was almost dead, turned around, he hit me in the back, and I was on the ground. Within 10 minutes of game. Anyhow, so, staff. You're going to have a crush tip on the end of a staff. However, a bow, short bow, composite bow, long bow, and also your crossbows, they do not have stabby tips. Do not hit somebody with them. A bow is for blocking. A short bow and a medium bow, I should say, we'll call it a composite bow, should have a center section. You'll see that it has a up to a 12-inch grip size on it. That way you can grip it wherever you want. It is just meant for blocking. Do not jab. Do not try to do anything. You're blocking shots with your left hand. If that's your offhand, you might be able to swing with your right hand. Just depends. Then when you get into a long bow, that is a two-handed blocking weapon. You are allowed to block like this, but you are not, again, allowed to hit anybody with this thing. Do not hit anybody with that. So you don't need a crush tip on that. That we do just like we did the other butt end weapon before. 2 inches of foam, 1 inch of the closed cell foam with the plug in it wrapped around. Okay? Now, with a bow, you're going to want to heat this pipe up. Heat it with a heat gun, and you'll be able to move it and make it malleable. I've seen a lot of weapons, a lot of bows that look like this. That doesn't look like a bow, guys. Let's not make it look like that. Slight curve, that's almost right there. Slight curve on it. If you want, you can do a little bit of this kind of stuff here at the end. You know, a little bit of this kind of thing at the end. Yeah, make it look like a bow. And make your long bow, short bow, composite bow in that fashion. And again, you're going to need a central place to hold on to it. That is where you would hold on to it for your firing. We use packet bows currently. Working on something else for that, but for now, packet bows. You act like you're nocking an arrow. You take your packet. I don't have a packet here with me. Oh, yeah, I do. I'm using this is my sling packet. Don't use a sling packet. But anyhow, put it next to your bow and then throw it. That is a bow. That's how your bow works, okay? And then you can block with it. No crush tip on the end. There is a hand grip in the area, 6 to 12 inches on a short bow composite bow. 12 to 18 maybe, not quite sure, on a long bow. Long bow, that can be up to 6 feet long, so it's pretty big, and that is a two-handed blocking weapon. It is two-handed. Do not block one-handed. You would have to drop the thing if you block one-handed, okay? All right, that's bows. Crossbows, just like we did before with the cross guard, same thing for a crossbow. Crossbow is going to be a certain amount of length. We don't want any core in the cross guard of your crossbow. You make your crossbow, it does not have to have a crush tip, it's just a regular tip. You put your crossbow down like that, that goes across there. You can make this kind of how you want, but I would, if you're going to, I'd squish it down maybe a little. I'd bend this thing and then put a piece of duct tape on the inside of this thing, or even if it's like this, that will keep it from unflexing, okay? The idea is your crossbow is for you to sit back, knock it, and throw your packet, and you can block with it, okay? As a T. It is a T blocking device. Heavy crossbow is bigger, light crossbow is smaller, but they are used for the blocking, okay? Both of them are one-handed blocking weapons. No, they'll have a handle on it, okay? You're allowed to have a handle on it. I'm just using this as an example. All right, that was that. And finally, shields. Okay, we got different kinds of shield possibilities in the game. One of my shields I made out of, basically it's insulation foam. The Owens Corning insulation foam for the side of your house. Get this at most hardware stores. Somebody gave me this, but it's only an inch and a half thick. You can make it up to 2 inches. Inch and a half is pretty darn good. It's kind of firm, it's kind of rigid, but it will break. I rolled over on my last one of these and broke it. You can see I made it look like it was cut out of a tree. It's really not very good. I didn't have any wood grain duct tape or anything like that. I made a little handle on it. You can use a handle from the hardware store if you want. I made this out of wood, just a piece of 2x4, and kind of cut it out and bolted it to the core. You make sure there's no bolts sticking out here, carriage bolts that hold from this side. They can be covered up with the duct tape. Indent them a little bit so that they're not out there to hit anybody. If there's anything sticking out here, cut that thing off, please, for God's sake. Don't jab your hand in there and cause problems. We don't need that, okay? Tighten it down. If we see those things sticking out, you can't have it in the game, okay? We're going to just stop that right then and there. You're going to have to fix it, okay? We probably won't have a hacksaw there, so do it beforehand, okay? That is the thing that you can hold it with. Some people like punch shields. They like to hold their shield and move it around, so you can make shields like that. I put a strap through mine. Just took a piece of a piece of that cord strap. I don't know what you call it. Anyhow, put a little bit of fabric on there. Put a nice soft thing on here to keep my arm straight. Arm goes in there. Put it over there. And then this thing can be used to block stuff, okay? Because it is foam, because it is this kind of foam, just take the edge of it and round it out, okay? Round the edge of this off. It doesn't need to be edged with foam. We'll get to the next one here in a second. This can be shaped to the right size. There will be dimensions and ways to do that in the next section. You'll see that in the rule book also. We'll get that for you. You can make that way. Now, I did another one. Now this one was a little more elaborate. It's kind of seen better days. The bottom of it started to fall apart. I need to rebuild it. Looks like a coffin shield. They call this a coffin shield. Again, another one of these bungee straps. This one actually pops free, so I can get it off my arm real quick and put it back on there, adjust the strap, stuff like that. Another handle here to help me move it around. Again, those little lift things for like gates and stuff. You can use those as long as the carriage bolts are covered up. I actually put little bungee cords in here to hold spell packets. Okay, so this is my shield for my caster. And those spell packets just kind of sit in there. That way I can throw some packets from there. I put in a little, this is like an old plastic bottle for, what do you call it? Pop, soda pop. Put it inside of some stuff. This thing keeps it open so I can slide this inside of there. So now I can have my shield, I can have my sword stuck inside my shield and draw it out when I need it, okay? All kinds of things you can do with it. Your duct tape, don't forget that little piece of cardboard tubing in there. That is great for that, okay? Make your little holsters for it, put it on your belt, stuff like that, very good for it. Now, when you make a shield like this, what I did is I had a plywood core. This is that 1/4 inch thick plywood. And then I put the thinner insulation. This stuff, they have it in very thin sheets that are 1/2 inch thick. I put 1/2 inch on this side. That's what this buildup is here, and everything around it, 1/2 inch. And then another 1/2 inch sheet to this side. Put a little bit of hot glue on there, stuck it all together, pulled them together so that this edge does not have any plywood sticking through it. It is all foam, and it's got a good 2 inch, 3 inch border on there, okay? Held it together, glued it together, and then taped it together. That protects you. If you want to make a shield out of, now again, that was a very small piece of, a very thin piece of plywood. There's 1/2 inch plywood, there's thicker sheets of plywood out there. If that's what you got, you'll want to cover the plywood with tape just to make sure it's not got splinters coming out or anything like that. I don't have a piece of, here's the hiccups again, excuse me. I don't have a piece of plywood, but I do have a piece of 3/4 inch board. If you make your shield out of this, if it's one big giant thing, then we take that foam that has the sticky stuff on it, and your sticky stuff just goes around the foam, your foam goes around the board to create your border all the way around it. That's what it kind of looks like in there. That will protect the corner of your shield from hurting anybody. These shields are pretty heavy, they're kind of dangerous, but with the foam on there, a little bit of duct tape on here to hold this all together, but the sticky stuff also works pretty good too. That is how you make a shield. All right, that was a lot of fun. I hope you guys had a good time. Make your stuff, have fun with it. If at all you don't actually end up playing, at least you'll have something to hit somebody with, okay? Those annoying roommates, friends, whatever. Sparring in your backyard, done it, it's a lot of fun. Don't sell it short. Decide what you want to do with your character as far as the weapons goes. Make your character the way you want, and then adjust the weapons to the style that you're trying to do. And you're going to make many weapons over the years. That's how I got good at doing it. Every time they break, I got to make another one. Every time I have a character concept change, I make another one. You'll be making weapons for a long time. Buy the big bags of foam if you want to. Like I said, different kinds of foam out there. If you see pool noodles on sale, the thinner ones or the smaller diameter ones. Again, not the big fat ones. Don't do those. Smaller diameter. Those are good ones for that. But anyhow, that was fun. Hope you have a good time with it, and I will catch you at the next video.